Well, on track, Holden and Ford and Tander and Winterbottom, they're rivals, but off track, well, the kids, they get along okay. Oliver Winterbottom and Scarlett Tander here at Barbagallo Raceway in Perth, having plenty of fun as we're here for the Perth 400. I reckon Frosty and GT are that nice about one another on the racetrack, but the second generation of V8 families here at Barbagallo. A bit of work for Team BOC. Jason Bright's Commodore ended up off the road at one stage there in race 14 that just unfolded, and a bit of work down there at the Brad Jones Racing team. All hands on deck. Dunlop Series is on deck now. Race 1 of the weekend, round 3 of the series. Greg Murphy's back alongside me for this one, and Ash Walsh has put it on pole and is fresh from winning the last round that we had back at Winton, going back some weeks. Paul Dumbrell, championship leader, he's alongside on the front row. But Dean Fiore jumping in this weekend to have a steer before the Enduros. Yeah, great to see him out there having a few laps. Local West Australian as well. Ann Peterson there 11th. Morgan Haber beside him, grid 12. Andrew Jones, not such a great qualifying for the BJR pilot, back there in 13th. New name on the list there, Ben Porter making his debut, former Formula V national champ, stepping into the R-Sport Commodore, one of the ex-Gary Rogers team cars. 26 cars coming across to the west, which is a good field considering it's tough economic times and the like. It's a long trip across the Nullarbor, but it's a good, solid field that have arrived here for the 4th round that we've had in the Dunlop Series here, Barbagallo. And the challenge here is longer races, 38 laps. They're going to have to be V8 supercar-like in their tyre management. That's all we talk about, you know, with the V8 supercars, the tyre dig. They had pit stops in the supercar race. These guys obviously no pit stops. They're on the hard Dunlop control tyre, but management for that period of time, these guys haven't done this many laps in one go at this circuit. So it is going to be a bit of a challenge. Ash Walsh has been doing a super job in his infant friend Ford, and he leads from pole. And it's the Armour All Pole Position Award that goes to the Ipswich-based driver, driving again this year for Matt Stone Racing, of course, son of Jim Stone from Stone Brothers Racing. But this team has been really working their way forward. It's his 3rd pole in his Dunlop Series career. He was a contender in the fight for the crown last year. He won this round here last year. Rihanna Crean's on the grid with him.
Yeah, our Armour All Pole Position winner, Ash Walsh. You've got a pretty nice spot sitting here on the grid for this race.
Yeah, it's always great to get that pole position award. I really love this track, and the boys did a really good job to get us out. We had a few dramas this morning with the engine braking and had to put the spare in. So thanks to the guys, they've done a really good job, and I'll see what I can do with this race and look after those tyres.
Paul Dumbrell currently leads this championship that you are chasing down, but you reckon that you're quicker than him and you think that you can get the job done this weekend?
Yeah, that was a bit of a bad headline, but, you know, we have had good speed all year. So, you know, I'll be doing what I can to stay out in front, and, you know, this is the best place to do it from.
It's okay to be confident, Ash. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll see what headlines he can write. Ash Walsh, the Queenslander, is on pole for the Dunlop Series. We'll get this race started when we come back to Perth at Barbagallo Raceway in just a sec. Ash Walsh on pole for round 3 of the Dunlop Series, but this man, Paul Dumbrell for Eccleston Motorsport, he leads the points, but only by 22. And Ash Walsh actually had a penalty earlier in the year at Adelaide for some contact with Cam Waters, who starts 3rd. That's effectively cost him the lead because it was 25 points when he was penalised. Cam Waters to start from 3rd in the NZ Ford for Ford Performance Racing. Dean Fiore, the former main game full-timer. He's a Nissan Enduro driver with the Norton Hornets this year. He's taken over the number 27 Ford from Matthew White's team. Bent the diff yesterday in a collision with a car coming out of pit lane. That was Dan Day, who's been penalised 5 grid spots because of that. So this is all about looking after tyres, and unlike the championship race, no pit stop. No pit stop, so it's going to be hard work for some of these guys to do this many laps on this one set of Dunlop hard control tyres, and there's obviously going to be an advantage there for some of these more experienced blokes. Good to see Dean Fiore, as you said, out there getting some miles as we get a green flag at the back. 38 laps, Murph, the longest race we've ever gone here in the Dunlop Series at Barbagallo. They've got to be patient. Run to turn 1, 38 laps. Who can make the Dunlops last? Who can get the start? Paul Dumbrell is on the right of screen. Good start in the background. Todd Hazelwood weaving his way through. Dumbrell, though, clearly will lead the run to turn 1. Fiore around the outside to 3rd, and everyone's taking it pretty steady on their way through this opening corner. We've got 26 cars in. Looks like we got them all out. Look at Fiore. He's up for the challenge here, but has to roll out of the throttle. slot back in behind Cam Waters. And Chris Bithering, the Ice Break Coffee Commodore, qualified really strongly too.
They're streaming through turn 5, down the hill to Cold Corner, turn 6. One of my favourite corners this in Australian motorsports. Just an awesome bit of road down to turn 6. Bit of touch there. Zukanovic looking to get down the inside.
That was on Aaron Russell in the ex-Jim Beam car. Look at Walsh. He's pulled that margin back already. At the end of lap 1, it's Paul Dumbrell that leads the way. Remember, he's doing this series to get his eye in for the Enduro Cup, where he'll team up with Jamie Winkup. There's Andrew Jones, new look car this weekend. Freightliner on board. The Brad Jones Racing Commodore. Dumbrell and Walsh, 1 and 2. Cam Waters, FBR's young gun, he's 3rd. Then Fiore, then Pither. Gary Jacobson, nice start. Todd Hazelwood, young rookie, up to 7. Jack LeBrock, Ant Pedersen and Heimgartner round out to 10, and a bit of dirt there for them to contend with on this second lap through.
Again, everybody probably very aware of how long this race is. You don't want to run wide here. You don't want to lock a break early on in the piece. Everyone being pretty good. There's Paul Morris looking on at Andre Heimgartner. This battle here, Zukanovic and Russell continues. But Walsh looking strong, looking very racy, shows his nose. Down under brakes and puts it in, but has to back out of it slightly. Paul Dumbrell runs a little bit wide, comes back on the track. Walsh definitely putting him under pressure as Heimgartner runs wide on the exit as well of the last turn. Very easy thing to do here. Barbagallo Morris is putting the nose of the Sergeant Security Falcon down the inside. Unable to do it this time. The Freightliner Commodore, Andrew Jones, looks on. Didn't qualify very good for this race. Would have expected a lot better from Jones to be further up the field. Already a bit of attitude there from the Eagleston Motorsport car of Paul Dumbrell. Cam Waters.
Fast man on the road, though, Murph. Dean Fiore, 58.9 on that first flying lap. Remember, he's never done the Dunlop Series before, Carrera Cup and Main Championship. This is where all that dirt was from.
This is why we've got a bit of dirt on the road, bit of action there. McGill losing the underfloor there at the back of his car.
And Jim Policina gets it, I reckon.
Yes, he's going to make it unusable.
Headbutts into the corner. This is Jack LeBrock. Now, we should point out this silver Ford, normally driven by Taz Douglas. He's not racing this weekend, and Jack's moved across different cars within the one team. Michael Hector here, Gulf Western Oil Ford. Oh, this is interesting. Cam Waters, car 56, championship contender. He's 3rd. He's under investigation for a starting procedure issue. We're not sure what the issue is. It's just come up on our timing screen. Brett Stewart, car 73, is the other one of them, but it's important to Cam Waters. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of that one, but this is the fight at the tail of the 10, which is still important because tomorrow we reverse the top 10 finishes from this race for the grid tomorrow. I don't agree with it. I don't think we need it anymore because the competitiveness of this series is really, really good, and you're giving a free kick to guys who've got cars that can then win races.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of it as Ash Walsh looks again down the inside of the last corner. Dumbrell, this time he's going to put the nose in there and get it done. Dumbrell turns in. Didn't give Walsh room at all and turned in. Walsh did a very good job there to avoid a bigger contact. So the action is on. Dumbrell's not willing to give anything away at the moment. LeBrock and Jacobson still going at it. Jacobson's teammate and Pedersen from New Zealand right behind. Heimgartner behind him. And Paul Morris looking on from behind. So not a lot of change going on there, but the action is at the front. These two are battling. Waters is closing in. Still another fastest lap for Waters on the last one as well. So definitely got the pace. We'll have to see how good that NZ Falcon is because we don't want him to be using up those tyres too much too early.
Remember, Murph, it's a Ford Performance Racing car run by FPR as well. They've had good history here over the last couple of years with the current new generation cars in the championship, but also the previous model, the older spec cars that we run in the Dunlop Series. But Walsh has got pace, but not quite enough to get through on Dumbrell. Here's Dumbrell's two teammates. This is Ant Pedersen, the Kiwi, down the inside on Gary Jacobson, and the door's open, so Andre Heimgartner will charge through. Paul Morris will go through. We saw this in the championship race. One guy gets you, but you're still stuck because the door's wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacobson's lost a lot of spots after that great starting position in 6th. He has just plummeted back through the field down to 11th. Brianna's in the pit lane.
Yeah, Greg, just to update you with Cam Waters, the team on the grid was working on the car after the 1 minute signal, so that is why he's under investigation.
Yeah, thanks, Rand. I thought that might be the case. There's rules where the team needs to leave the grid after the 1 minute signal, and they were still there at that time, so they're under investigation for that one. It'll probably get looked into after this event, I think.
We'll wait and see. We'll keep an eye on this throughout the course of this 38-lap race. Paul Dumbrell leads the way. The first of 2 races for the weekend for the Dunlop Series. It's their 3rd round. Cam Waters, he might have something hanging over him from the start line, but he's got a fast car. He's right on the back of Ash Walsh, but for the moment, it's the former series champ, Paul Dumbrell. He leads the way. passing. Yellow flag situation continues, but Dunbrell will at least take the flag and take his second race win of the year.
And guys, still not aware of what the rules and regulations are there.
Sometimes. Either way, it's a shame to finish because that was a great race between Paul Dunbrell and Ash Walsh. So they're 1-2. We'll have another race tomorrow. Dean Fiore, welcome back to V8 racing. He finished third. Chris Bither, that was a nice job. Todd Hazelwood, that's really great.
Super
young
result
guy.
for Todd, absolutely.
He's finished fifth for Matt Stone Racing. Jack Lebrocki's best run for Image Racing. Waters back to seventh. Pedersen and Heimgartner. The dude is on pole for tomorrow. He finishes 10th in that one. Gary Jacobson had a little bit going. Frederick Lestrup, the Swede, in 15th. First time he's been to Perth. Matt Hansen, one of the local drivers. That's a good job in P14. Andrew Jones did get back on the road. He finished eventually 24th, but he was one lap down on the leaders, and Morgan Haber ended up bunkered in the sand down at turn 6. But it's Paul Dunbrell who picks up the race win. The Dunlop cars are back tomorrow. We're counting down, though, to race 15 in the V8 Supercars. More from Perth in just a moment.
We got so much to give.